Yo, welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is your boy TB, as you already know, and you should know. And if you didn't know, that's because it's your first time here, so welcome. Today, we need to talk about the Phoenix Suns. I was gonna hold off on this video, but after their embarrassing preseason opener against the Adelaide 36ers, they allowed two guys on this team to combine for 67 points and shoot 24 for 43 from three. It's preseason, so it doesn't matter, right? Well, it's complicated. You guys remember last year, the Lakers didn't get a single win in the preseason. And you remember how, through Laker Nation, we had this feeling that though it didn't mean anything, it still meant a lot. And we knew it meant a lot because once the season started, it was just more of the same that we saw in the preseason, just rearing its ugly head in the regular season. That's pretty much what I get from this loss. Now, maybe I'm overreacting. It's possible because I've been preying on the Suns' downfall for the past 2 years. But one thing I've always said on this channel about the Suns, Utah, and the Grizzlies, no matter how good they are in the West, they're a team that can never see it through to the title. Those are teams that essentially they're frauds. Anytime they have a good team, a contending team that could potentially do something, they'll have those teams for a 5-year stretch and it'll fizzle out, and those teams will never even see a finals appearance. If you don't believe me, go look at those Suns teams from the 2000s with Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, John Marion, Leandro Barbosa. They had some guys. They had Jason Richardson on that team, even had a young Goran Dragic for some time. They never won anything despite putting fear into the Western Conference's heart year after year after year. I know personally as a Lakers fan, that was a team I always thought would be a threat come playoff time. That is until they met that demon Kobe Bryant in the playoffs and all that was put to bed. This year, the Suns went 64-18, getting the #1 seed, led by Coach of the Year Monty Williams, and were a second-round exit to Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. We all know that this team isn't really sniffing 60 wins this year, let alone 55 by my opinion. But if you don't believe that, let's look at some of the guys they lost coming into the season, and some that are a possibility and a threat to lose during the year. JaVale McGee is one of them. He's now a Maverick. DeAndre Ayton is miserable because he does not want to be there, maybe being a potential trade piece at some point in the season. Jay Crowder will be traded at some point, and if he's not traded, they're going to get nothing back from him in free agency. Jalen Smith is a pacer. Dude can really shoot. He's a great big. They should have really kept him and allowed DeAndre Ayton to walk. That way, they technically didn't get nothing in return, but in this case, they traded him, let him go, and DeAndre Ayton is now there like a ticking time bomb. And last but not least, Aaron Holiday. He is now an Atlanta Hawk. This team is in prime position for an implode like none other, and as a Lakers fan, I am totally here for it. To me, it's always good for basketball when the Suns are losing because that fan base is unbearable when they get a couple wins under their belt and they start to win some games. That fan base is ridiculous. I can genuinely see them hanging around the bottom 5 of the conference this year, despite having an amazing coach, Book, who is arguably the best shooting guard in the league, and CP3 Chris Paul, but you got to put the 0 because 0 rings, you already know how it is, that Chris Paul is CPO until further notice. Listen, bro. We know Chris Paul is a perennial loser when the playoffs start. So at this point, is there really anything we need to look forward to from the Suns? The West got so much better to the point I can't see the Suns doing much of anything because they arguably got worse. The teams I have over the Suns without question are the Clippers, Warriors, Nuggets, and possibly the Lakers if they can remain healthy. The Suns are at a point where they have only really been good for 2 years, and yet they still feel like this team is on the hot seat on the brink of rebuilding. The Suns are a disappointing season away from rebuilding around Devin Booker and finding a trade partner for DeAndre Ayton so that they can get some valuable pieces in return. In terms of players that will play reasonable minutes come playoff time, the only players they brought in were Frank Jackson, Josh Okogie, and Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot. Yeah, not exactly world-breaking talent there. The Suns are at a stage of contention, but I don't think they'll actually be doing much contending. At times, Mikal Bridges looks like a potential DPOY. Chris Paul looks like he's still in his prime, and Book is gonna be Book. But I think we're kidding ourselves if we think this team will be a top team in the West again. Last year, Monty Williams did a masterful job navigating troubled waters when Book and CP were hurt. Chris Paul missed 17 games and Book missed 14. Despite them missing games, Chris Paul had a phenomenal season, while Devin Booker, he had what we could describe as the best year of his career thus far. Ayton had a solid season, although he did miss 24 games and he didn't get the extension he looked for. But I will say this, and this is the one silver lining for the Suns that is a very real possibility. If the Suns can find a way to deal Ayton and get reasonable pieces in return, most specifically a deal with the Pacers to get Miles Turner there, that could turn them around and immediately make them a top 5 team. Ayton is miserable, we know this. I could be blowing it out of proportion a little bit, but regardless, this will bring down team morale and it does have effect on team success regardless of how you put it. The effect it's gonna have on the team's success is gonna be left to see throughout the year, so I'm not gonna dive into that too much. The way for this team starts and ends with their supporting stars scoring more and some being more efficient. Guys like Cameron Payne need to be more efficient as he's been proven to be a microwave off the bench, but he has a tendency to shoot outside the flow of the offense, allowing other teams to get in transition and get a run going. And if you want to die on that hill as a Suns organization, be my guest, because personally, Cam Payne is not a threat. Others like Mikal Bridges, they need to just bring up their scoring. He started to rise this past season, and the Suns can only hope for this trend to continue. Newly signed Josh Okogie will be looked to help with this team's defense on the wing as well, and him bringing in another 3-and-D aspect, which is probably the reason why Jay Crowder will be out of there soon. The Suns are hoping Josh Okogie's 3-and-D ability can take the next step this year, and at just 24 years old, he has the opportunity to cement himself as one of the better 3-and-D players in this league if he is able to raise his shooting percentage while making a couple more threes at the same time. If Jay Crowder isn't traded, he's expected to leave in free agency, and not to mention Cam Johnson will also be hitting the free agent market, except this year it'll be as a restricted free agent. But if you're the Suns organization, you do have to sit there and think, is Cam Johnson someone you can extend for the future, or is he a guy that's replaceable? Now personally, I don't think he's a guy that's replaceable, but that could be my Tar Heel bias coming out because he did go to North Carolina. Cam Johnson, in my opinion, is someone you extend. He's a guy that can shoot the lights out the gym while having pretty good length on defense, even though he's not the best defender. That 6'9", 6'10" frame does help him a lot. Cam Johnson, he literally has the measurables of the perfect 2K player minus the heliocentric abilities. Cam is a huge part of what they do, and the progress he's shown thus far is something that I could have only dreamed for as a North Carolina fan. Here's the critical question for this team and what we're gonna close this video out on though. How will Chris Paul's age and DeAndre Ayton's productivity factor into the Suns being a contender? With Phoenix losing most of their depth in free agency next year, it seems this is a year that's make it or break it, championship or bust. Book needs a consistent scoring option and shot creator, and at the moment he just doesn't have that. They'll soon be back to where they were, but when Book first joined the Suns, if this team does not find a way to get pieces in the building to help. I think the Suns win around 50 games this year and will be around the 5 to 7 seed. 50 games truthfully is their ceiling, so I could truly see them in the 45 to 50 range, somewhere in that range, and they're not really gonna do much in the West once playoffs start. I see them as a first round exit this year, and if they are a first round exit, the Suns are gonna be in some real murky waters next offseason. That's all I got for you guys in this video. Y'all let me know where you think the Suns will be by the end of the year. What do you think this year will look like for the Suns? And as always, here's your boy TB with the greatest hoop stories and debates on the tube, and I'm out. Peace.